kind of tired of being sick. Not gonna lie. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Bean here, and today I'm coming at you with my recent reads of the past month and a week. I know usually this is one of the first videos of the month, and the reason it is not was because I had COVID. I tested positive for COVID, and I'm finally feeling better. It took me a good solid 10 days to get over this. I might still be positive. We haven't gone and retested yet, but I am definitely feeling better. I have energy, and so I'm finally able to film with my normal amount of unnatural energy, and I'm feeling great about it. You should see I'm cleaning the house like no other. I need to do stuff now. It's great. I've been confined to bed for 10 days, and we're so happy to be out of bed right now. Let me just tell you that right now, guys. But I am going back to the beginning of June for this recent reads video, and I'm just going to jump right into it. Basically, quick little disclaimer here. The first 5 books on this list are books that I read during the 7 in 7 readathon that I did at the beginning of June, back when I had a furlough week. So if you want to hear more details about those books, check out that vlog. It is up, and I will link it down below. And yeah, so that's about what I got to say here. So I'm going to go through the first 5 pretty quickly, so that way there aren't too many repeats. I'll just kind of summarize my thoughts on them, and then we will move on. So yeah, all right, we're going to get into it now. The first book that I read in the 7 in 7 vlog was Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in the Throne of Glass series, and now this was actually a reread for me. I read this one way back when I was just fresh out of college, and I admired the sarcasm and the sass of the story the first time I read it, and that has not changed. I loved how sarcastic and how sassy the characters in this story are. This book is just as entertaining, gripping, and smart as I remember it being, and I honestly can't wait to continue the series. I have the next 2 books borrowed from Callie sitting right here on my shelf waiting for me to read them, so I will hopefully be getting to those soon. Side effect of COVID was I was not able to concentrate on reading, so it went to a lot of audiobooks, but we'll get into that later. In case you can't tell, I ended up giving Throne of Glass a 5 out of 5. The next book that I read was My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. This is the first book in the My Lady Janie's trilogy, and I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5. What I didn't realize when I first started it was that it is a magical realism historical fiction book. I love magical realism normally, but I was not prepared for the magical realism in this story. I was going in anticipating just the historical fiction, and then the magic system was thrown at me, and I just kind of got confused and a little lost. The other thing that didn't help was that this story follows the Lady Jane Grey, who is also known as the 9-Day Queen, and I know nothing else about her. And so it probably would have been more helpful if I had known a little bit more about her going into this story. I would have had more of a connection and more of a reason to enjoy it. But I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5. The narrators were still super sarcastic and still a lot of fun to read. So I did enjoy it. It just wasn't my favorite book of the month. The next book that I read was probably one of my favorites so far this year, and that is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This book has been on countless TBRs for me, and I finally read it, and as I predicted, I loved it. This book follows 2 main characters, Yumeko and Cage, who are on a journey in order to retrieve an ancient artifact, and this is very much written in a sort of style of a manga or anime being told in book form. And I have the other 2 books sitting right here behind me, and I plan on finishing that series. I plan on finishing this series this month or next month at the latest. This was gripping. I read it in a single sitting, and I cannot wait to continue. This book got a 4.5 out of 5 for me. The only reason for that was because the entire story is told in first person, and I didn't catch that it was told in alternating perspectives. It threw me at first, and I was very confused as to what was going on. But once I caught on, it really made sense, and the characters are lovely. I cannot get over this book. So the next book I read was The Monster of Elendhaven by Jennifer Geitsbright. This book I ended up giving a 3 out of 5. It was good. I enjoyed the last 60 pages. It is a novella, so it wasn't a long book, but I needed a short book in this readathon because I needed something that I thought was going to be lighter, and this was not a lighter story. This is a very intense, very dark story about murder and mayhem, and it was fine. I didn't find it to be nearly as special as I keep hearing everyone talking about it being, so I don't know if that was me, but I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5. I am unhauling it, unfortunately, but I hope somebody else enjoys it a lot more than I did. The next book I read is actually one of my favorite books so far of this year as well. So I got 2 more favorite books out of this readathon, and that is Thorn by Intisar Khanani. And now, fun fact about this book, I have actually had a copy of this book, unbeknownst to me, for years. This book first came out as an ebook like 5 or 6 years ago. And so I had the ebook in my Kindle and failed to read it. What is wrong with me? I don't know what was wrong with me. Not okay. This is a Goose Girl retelling that follows Thorn, who is known as Elira, as she realizes that being a princess really isn't as bad as her family has made it out to be. This story deals a lot with family and deals a lot with characters becoming more confident in themselves and learning about themselves and each other. And I thought that the character evolution in this story was beautifully done. It is natural, it is believable, and it makes a lot of sense for the characters that we have here. In this story, Thorn has to build up her confidence exponentially because due to a past history of familial abuse. And so it's very intense story, and it really tugged at the heartstrings at points, but I loved it. I loved every second of it, and I cannot recommend this enough. It was so well done, and it also better be a series because I have questions, and I would really like them answered. Thank you very much. After the readathon, I continued reading and was able to get through several more books, and the first one in that list was Something is Killing the Children, Volume 1 by James Tynion IV. This is technically a bind-up of comics 1 through 5 of this series. There are 6 total, so I'm 1 comic behind on being caught up, but this was a very dark, very intriguing story about monsters taking children and about a woman who goes around and hunts these monsters. So I was captivated by this. I thought it was very well done, and be prepared for creepy and disturbing and blood, guts, and gore everywhere. So highly recommend. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5. Really enjoyed it, and I do plan on continuing to read this series if there are more coming out. The next book that I read was Evil Under the Sun, and that is number 24 in the Hercule Poirot series by Agatha Christie. I am continuing this series, finally. Unfortunately, all the audiobooks have been taken off of my Scribd, and so now I am requesting them from my library and reading them as they come in, which is very slowly. But I'm still hoping to get through them all. Maybe not by the end of this year, though, unfortunately. This book follows Poirot as he's on vacation, actually, and a newly rich woman who she just came into a bunch of money is killed on a vacation island. And the only suspects are those on the island, and it turns out everyone's having an affair with everyone, basically. That's how it goes. And the most intriguing part for me was how the murder was done. I thought it was a well-done story, a little unintriguing in some parts, but it still led to me giving it a 4 out of 5. Alright, after that, I moved on to another reread, and I reread Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, because I love this book. This is a story about a girl named Mia who goes to the Church of Blood in order to learn how to be an assassin, so that way she can take revenge on the people who killed her family. Basically, this is all of the blood, guts, and gore and sassy black shadow cats. Mr. Kindly is kind of my favorite thing in the world, and this was a reread for me. I loved it just as much the second time as I did the first time, and now I have the second one, and the third one is on its way to me. So I will be reading these beautiful books. I will be finishing the series this year, and I am so excited. I just can't get over it. These covers are freaking gorgeous, guys. Come on. But yes, 5 out of 5 for me, in case you couldn't tell. The next book that I finished was a short story collection, and that is Life is Short and Then You Die, edited by Kelly Armstrong. This is basically a story following people who are having their first encounters with murder, whether it be as a murderer or seeing a murder happen or anything of the sort. It does not follow anyone who is being murdered, but that's a little more difficult to do. But this was a very interesting collection, and I really did enjoy the collection itself. There were some 5 stars and some 2 stars, some 3 stars, some 4 stars, so right around in the middle there. Overall, I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5. It mostly stuck with me, and I really did enjoy it. I really was captivated by the title back when I first saw it, and so yeah, I am glad that I read it. All right. The next audiobook I listened to happened to come into the library again, and that was Five Little Pigs, Hercule Poirot number 25 by Agatha Christie. This one was probably one of the most intriguing Hercule Poirot books that I have read yet, and that is because this time Poirot is hired to solve a mystery that was supposedly solved over 10 years ago. And so the person who was accused of the crime, she has passed away. She died in prison, and her daughter received a letter from her saying that she was innocent. And so her daughter wants to clarify and see if she was actually innocent. And so Poirot goes back to the house where it all happened and gets everyone together who was there the night that this man was killed, and tries to figure out who did it. It was very interesting, very well done in my opinion, and I haven't read anything like that before, so I was intrigued for sure. I ended up giving this one a 4.5 out of 5. The next 2 books that I read are part of a series, and the first one is The Changeling, which is the first book in the Oddmeyer series by William Ritter. This one I ended up giving a 3.5 out of 5. It was an interesting read with an intriguing storyline and an intriguing concept. However, I struggled with saying that I enjoyed it, mostly because of the writing style. In summary, this book follows a set of twins, Cole and Tin, who one of them is human and one of them is a changeling, but no one knows which one is which, including the goblin that attempted to switch the real twin with the changeling. And so these two grow up knowing that one of them is a changeling, since one just appeared in the crib overnight, but they never know which one is which. And throughout the story, they get a letter from the goblin saying that if the changeling doesn't come back to the goblin town, the entire forest around the town will disintegrate, and they need the changeling's magic in order to bring the town back. And they end up going on an adventure into these forbidden woods in order to figure out who the changeling is and who is the human. It was intriguing. It was well done. This definitely had a lot of familial themes and figuring out who you are and where you belong kind of ideas that I really did enjoy and appreciate. I think it was more William Ritter was just kind of trying to get into the vibe of writing middle grade, because it is different from writing young adult, which I know he has written before because I have the series, the Jacobite series that he wrote. So it was well done for a first delve into middle grade. The second book in the series that I read was The Unready Queen. Now this follows a character that we meet in the first book named Fable, who was born and raised in these mysterious woods. And I don't want to go too much more into that because there are spoilers for the first book, but basically there's deforestation happening and she needs to take care of it. I ended up liking this one more. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 because I thought it was written a little bit better. It was written in a style that just felt more comfortable and felt more familiar as far as middle grade goes. I got 2 books left, guys. The next 2 books that I read during my 10-day stint of having COVID. When I was not able to focus on a page, it would give me a headache to try and read, just like it was giving me headaches to look at a computer screen, which still is happening, but not nearly as much as it was, and not nearly as bad as it was. But I ended up going to my library and seeing what they had, and a couple requests came in, so I have been listening to those. The first one that I listened to was Undeniable: Evolution and the Science of Creation by Bill Nye. Bill Nye the Science Guy is a TV show that I grew up with, so I don't know if that ages me or anything, but I absolutely loved watching Bill Nye the Science Guy. And this book talked all about creation and evolution and Charles Darwin, and it was interesting. It did feel a bit dated, and then when I looked back, it was published in 2014, so that's why I felt a little bit dated, but it was still full of very interesting information and very useful information, so I gave it a 4 out of 5. The last book that I'm going to talk about is the first book in a new series that I am now completely addicted to. It's called I've Got You Under My Skin by Mary Higgins Clark. This is the first book in the Under Suspicion series. This series follows a woman named Lori who is a television producer whose husband was murdered years ago in cold blood in front of her young son. And so ever since then, she's kind of had this chip on her shoulder about murder. However, she takes that and she decides to create a TV show about unsolved murders. And so she takes famous murders and basically puts them into a reality situation where it's like, all right, let's interview all these people with an actual psychiatrist or an actual psychologist here, who's another character who I really like, and let's see what happens and see if some of the answers will change over the years. And this is how her show gets started. And along with this, at the same time, the man who murdered her husband is out to try and kill her and her son. Now, we also learn that her father is involved. Her father is an ex-police officer who has basically moved in right down the street from his daughter and grandson in order to keep an eye on them after her husband was killed. So it's a whole bunch of things going on. I loved the writing. I was intrigued by the characters. I loved the characters. Hated some of them. And I thought it was super well done, and I cannot wait to continue with this series. The next book is called The Cinderella Murder, I believe, and so I'm here for it. I'm excited. All 6 books have audiobooks, so I am super excited to read this series. Yeah, in case you can't tell, I gave that one a 5 out of 5 because I listened to it in one sitting, so that was exciting. I refused to go to bed until I finished it because I needed to know what happened. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, now is the perfect time to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. We post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and if you want to be notified when we post those videos, hit the little bell icon down below. All of our information is listed down in the description, along with some important links that you guys should definitely check out. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and wear your mask, guys, please. All right, bye. Don't be an alpha hole.